Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first session of the third day, Shaping the Future of Seafarers in the Maritime Industry. Please welcome Milhar Fouazuddin presenting Shaping the Future of Seafarers in the Maritime Industry.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سيدات والسادة صباح الخير. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me first express my sincere appreciation to the Transport General Authority for inviting me to speak at the Sustainable Maritime Industry Conference in Jeddah. In the past 2 days, we heard many eminent experts speak during the panel sessions on a number of factors that are crucial to the sustainability of the maritime industry. Among them, noteworthy are new technology, alternative fuels, a maritime circular economy, ship and shore connectivity, digitalization and cybersecurity, maritime security, and autonomous ships. Quite a number of areas where a lot of work is currently being done to improve and sustain the maritime industry. A key issue in the forefront right now is decarbonization and minimization of carbon emissions from ships. Ships are not the most polluting of vehicles on this earth. Maritime transportation is the most efficient and cost-effective mode of transportation for global trade. Yet we need to clean up our act to make sure it is as carbon neutral as possible. The experts yesterday touched upon autonomous ships, or MASS as we call them at the International Maritime Organization, Maritime Autonomous Surface Ships. These ships are a reality. They will come into the industry. They will be developed, inshallah. It's a matter of time. The deployment of large numbers of autonomous vehicles ships, in whichever form they will be designed and operated, will be decided in the future. So the deployment of autonomous ships is not imminent. The transition is not going to be tomorrow. It is going to be in a number of years. We don't know how many years more, because the definition of autonomous ships, the parameters for their design and operation have not been decided yet. They have not been accepted yet. And which type of autonomous ship it will be operated on, in which sector of the maritime industry, is not decided yet. So we come back to what Professor James Turner said on the continued use of internal combustion engines, or ICE. They will still continue to be operated using liquid fuels, or fossil fuels as they're more commonly called now, diesel, or liquefied gas fuels, while other alternative fuels are being developed. Yes, there was a discussion very briefly about methanol, biofuels, ammonia, hydrogen, but nobody knows yet which will be the most suitable, efficient, cost-effective alternative fuel for the world fleet. This is in the making. Hence, the diesel 2- or 4-stroke propulsion and generation engines will still continue to be used on board ships. Ships will still be manned. I shouldn't say manned. I should say the human element will still be present on ships for many more decades to come. The human element will not be shut off for now. All the initiatives that are being taken, every measure that is being put in place, translates to one thing for those who operate the ships, the human element, the most valuable asset of any ship owner or operator, the seafarer. This translates into even more training for seafarers. Seafarers are already overburdened with different types of training. The International Maritime Organization in 1978 agreed minimum standards of training for seafarers, education, training, and certification. That has evolved into the 1995 and the 2010 version with amendments, and they'll continue to evolve. Right now, there is a comprehensive review that is being undertaken by the International Maritime Organization to try to update the standards and the requirements to meet the needs of the industry, the real needs. The evolving technological developments need to be addressed in the global minimum standards, so that every party to the convention then has a responsibility to implement those standards. What does it do for the seafarer? The seafarers have a better idea of what level of education and training they require to be certificated, to be considered, I beg your pardon, to be considered competent, to be able to perform on board ships. According to a survey conducted by the World Maritime University not too long ago, seafarers were found, 56% were found to be funding their own training. The majority of seafarers serving the world fleet come from developing countries. Affordability is something that is a priority for developing country seafarers. Who needs the seafarers? Do the seafarers need the shipping industry, or does the shipping industry need the seafarers? The shipping industry needs seafarers. The onus then is on the industry to try and support the cost of training of their principal asset, not the ship. You can spend $1 billion building a cruise ship. Who keeps it safe? Who keeps it secure? Who keeps it environmentally compatible, meeting all the standards developed by the International Maritime Organization? It is the seafarer. Yet, when a seafarer gets a certificate of competency and goes on board a ship, or before boarding a ship, when they apply for the job, the manning agent or ship operator tells him or her, you need to get the following additional qualifications in order to work in this sector: the gas, the tanker, the bulk, the container, the passenger sector. Why? If the countries that have signed up to the STCW Convention are providing the foundation for education, training, and certification to the seafarers that they produce, those seafarers do not have to follow other courses in order to be acceptable to the industry. The reality is that seafarers need to carry lots of pieces of paper to show that they are qualified for the job they are doing in order to satisfy another governmental organ in every port they visit, Port State Control. Should that be the case? No. They need to have one piece of paper, like an airline pilot, a card to show that I am qualified, I have been type-rated to fly this airline. Seafarers need to have a similar card to show that they are qualified. We have to reduce the burden on the seafarer for bearing the cost, the time, and the effort to gain a level of education and training to make them acceptable to the industry. The COVID-19 pandemic taught the entire world and humanity a great lesson. While the airline industry ground almost to a halt, there were two sets of professionals who kept the world afloat and alive. The medical professionals across the world kept the people, they cared for the people and kept them alive. Who transported all the goods and the medication to do that? The maritime industry. Who served with great sacrifice, unable to go home for months and months after their contract? It's a seafarer. On the 25th of June every year, the day that the 2010 Manila Amendments were adopted by the IMO in the Philippines, it's called the Day of the Seafarer. A campaign begins a week before on the Day of the Seafarer, for the Day of the Seafarer. Everybody sends postage notes, tweets, messages on Instagram, on YouTube, whatever, social media, to say, we value you. I recall, during my time in IMO, reading these post-it notes in the IMO cafeteria by staff and member state delegates. On the 26th, I asked them, do you remember what you wrote? Nobody remembered. That is the memory span. Seafarers need to be recognized, they need to be valued. Member states, the industry, maritime education and training providers need to work together in collaboration to make sure that the standards that the seafarers need to achieve are commonly look after their mental health, look after their families, recognize their contribution. So training providers and the industry have more than a responsibility to ensure that the seafarers that they employ actually value their profession. If you want to bring young people, yesterday and day before there were loads of young Saudi cadets here. I don't see them today, but that is a great sign. So congratulations to the Kingdom for promoting seafaring, including women. If I may, the last BIMCO manpower report stated there were 1.89 million seafarers serving the maritime industry. And guess what? 24,059 women, 1.12% of the manpower were women. 51% of humanity is women, represented by 1.12%. They further said that by 2026, the maritime industry will need 84,059 more officers. Here is my challenge to the Kingdom, to the industry, to the region, to the world. If you can, from now till 2026, employ 1/3 of that 84,000, do you know what you will have in 2 years' time? You will have double the number of women in the industry, seafaring. On that note, I would like to say, God bless the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. May it achieve its objectives and its vision 2030 and beyond. God bless seafarers everywhere. And God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first panel discussion, Harmonization between Maritime Industry and Educational Institutions. Our panelists are William Azou, Captain Turki Shihri, Dr. Khansa Lagdami, Dr. Shadi Al-Ghaffari, Professor Dr. Norma Martinez.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our session today, which is seeking the harmonization between the maritime education and the changing, rapidly maritime industry. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the well-organization that I have seen here in this conference, the great hospitality that we have seen, and we look forward to meet every now and then to keep on discussing the emerging issues which is facing the maritime industry from different aspects. I would like to welcome the panelists, Dr. Shadi Al-Ghaffari, Vice Dean for King Abdulaziz University, the Maritime College, Captain Turk Al-Shihri, the Managing Director of the National Maritime Academy in Saudi Arabia, Mr. William Azou, which is the former Deputy Director, Subdivision for Maritime Development Technical Cooperation in the IMO, Dr. Norman Martins, the Director of the International Maritime Law Institute in Malta, and Dr. Khansa Lijadmi, the ITF Seafarers Trust Assistant Professor and Maritime Labor Law and Policy in the World Maritime University. So it's very obvious that we are tackling the issue here from totally different aspects. So we're bringing all the stakeholders related to forming and shaping the future seafarers in order to make sure that we are discussing it in a very well scientific way. So let's start by Dr. Shadi Al-Ghaffari. Dr. Shadi, please, what do you think? Would you prefer the term seafarer or maritime professionals for your graduates?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me in this event, and also would like to thank the TGA for well organized. I'm very happy here to be with expert people from the industry. Back to the question, Dr. Ahmed. First of all, let's differentiate between the seafarer and maritime professional. The seafarer is people who work usually in the ship. They have different rules, they have a different certificate, but the maritime professional is a wider term that used for any job that work in the industry, whether it's technical or managerial background. So as a maritime institute, we prefer the term maritime professional because in our student, they usually go through 3 stages. First, they have to study in the foundation year to obtain the basic course like physics, math, mathematics, all this basic foundation course. And then they have to complete the credit hours for each department and each department in the college. After that, the students have to obtain the necessary training on the ship or in the port, it depends on the major, and also obtain the professional certificate. That's why we call it maritime professional. And a student, after all, they have the right to choose whether if worked on the ship or whether to work in the land.
Okay. And I think that will take us to Captain Turkey to discuss from this perspective, how can the maritime academies ensure that the trainees are job ready given the fast-paced advances in the maritime technology? Out of the previous questions, which is we are trying to form here a maritime professional capable to work on board vessels or even in different aspects in the maritime industry, shipping companies, port operations, or else.
Okay, thank you, Captain. And I would like first to thank PGA for their kind reception and invitation to this event, and their support in setting a booth for National Maritime Academy, and as well inviting me as a speaker with the distinguished guests with vast experience. My input on the digitalization and how to make sure that my trainees are ready or our trainees are ready. We have to first collaborate with the industry itself, because to be up to date, you need to be part of the business. So sometimes changes happen, and if you are away from the industry, you'll notice that you are left behind. So what we do, we go to the industry, we collaborate. We did several agreements and invited the industry to join in explaining what they are going through and how they are adding to their ships and companies as new equipments. We made also certain agreements for manufacturers that invented some inventions in the industry. Because sometimes you cannot have access to inventions unless you are part of the manufacturing companies. It's secrets, and we understand that, but we want them to come and make sure that trainees, when they are in the market and the equipment is there, that they are ready to handle such equipment and they understand how it works. The other thing, maybe we also need to focus on the practical element of training, because without practicality, sometimes you find that academic study sometimes does not match 100% actual hands-on industry or what happens in the industry. So we join into, or we bought several advanced simulators, and we bought very advanced labs, electronic labs and electrical labs. We bought several GMDSS labs that simulate reality. Sometimes you cannot expose students to danger. So the only environment that you can make sure you can explain to them what they go through is through simulation. So when you put them into danger, they will be ready to respond when it comes in reality. If you don't have that kind of sense for a student, you'll find that they are always failing when they face the emergency. Sometimes even experienced people, when they face emergency, they fail. So we want to make sure that they are ready for such situations. The other thing is we are employing experts in the field, that people that have done it before, because if they have done it, then they will bridge the gap between the academic and practical side of the education. And they can narrow the gap of that knowledge and make sure that students understand when they are on board what they will face and how they will match it with what they read somewhere. And so, and we can't forget soft skills. And we need to make sure that they are ready to transfer their practical knowledge, the academic knowledge, into communication mechanism with the outside world. So we teach them communication, leadership skills, risk management, to make sure that they understand how to work within that very complex environment. And we try to instill or make sure that we introduce them into long life learning. So training is not only one time, it's always, especially for maritime. It's continuous. And with the introduction of new systems, new technology, they need to understand that they will need to keep learning, not only the student, but also the faculty.
Thank you, Captain Tork. Exactly, this always been the challenge of any maritime academy, even in the academy that I'm representing here, which is Sharjah Maritime Academy in United Arab Emirates. It's been very challenging to make sure that you are forming the graduate in a proper way, yes, professional skills, technical skills, and managerial skills to be able to continue and pursue his career on shore in different aspects of the industry. Yeah. And also, it's always been challenging to move on with the technology and the ongoing technology. Right. And that might take us to Mr. William to talk about his view on the impact of autonomous ships on the future of seafarers, training, and the retraining of the existing ones in order to make sure that they are properly reshaped to fit the new expected era of the autonomous vessels.
Thanks very much. I hope you can hear me clearly, because I think in this big room it re-echoes, so you might be struggling to hear us sometimes. So I'll try to be as clear as I can. Thank you very much for the question, but the Managing Director has already answered part of my questions, but I'll try to elaborate a bit more. First, permit me to express my personal appreciation to the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for organizing this event. We know what has gone in, particularly those who work from behind the scene, those we do not see, to make this process ongoing. And I think, Mr. Moderator, the best panel has been kept for the last, that is today. I'm an optimist in terms of the impact of technology on seafarers. I don't believe in naysaying. If you have listened to my former colleague, Mr. Miller, who made a very passionate presentation here, if you listen through what he said, you begin to have a picture of what we have at hand. I embrace technology, no doubt about it, but we have to embrace technology with our thinking caps on. We can't avoid it. That is the trend. That is where we're going. But what would be the impact of the 3,500 studentship you have now in the academy, and 6,000 you have already pushed into the market? If we become robotic in what we do, what happens to those seafarers we have trained? Now, we have to separate facts from fiction. Globally, we have 1.6 million seafarers out there. If we do not take care in terms of regulations, we're going to have serious problems at hand. So we must be able to regulate the industry, particularly digitalization and robotics or artificial intelligence or whatever you call it, so that those seafarers who will be impacted on board and who will now work from the land-based will be able to be reskilled, retrained, and then we also have retooling, because they need those tools to be able to survive outside outside the ships. So the impact will be positive, and it can only be positive with good regulations. You'll be well aware that IMO has been working in the last couple of years on the mass autonomous ships, surface ships, and trying to find out what aspect of the safety regulations that can be amended to ensure that the autonomous ships become a lot more safer and greener. So it's an ongoing process. There is no end date because it's a process that will go through the trajectory. So I am optimistic, as I said, and it's going to be positive in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, William. And we'll move to Dr. Norman, who's representing the maritime law aspect in our discussion today. So please, Norman, considering the central role of IMLI plays in furthering the IMO's objectives, how has the IMLI influenced the implementation of IMO legal instruments as well as creating a cadre of international maritime specialists around the globe?
Thank you very much for the question, Dr. Captain Youssef. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this wonderful conference and the privilege that has been conferred upon us upon being here and sharing a few of our thoughts with you on the harmonization between the industry and educational institutions. The question addresses IMLI in particular and IMO. And as you may know, IMO is the specialized agency of the United Nations that has been tasked with safeguarding and developing the maritime industry, procuring a safe, secure, and efficient shipping on clean oceans. Since the 1960s, IMO has prepared a formidable international maritime legal framework that comprises treaties or conventions, codes, regulations, and other standards. But the framework that has been developed within IMO can go just as far. And it all depends on the effective implementation by states. And it was found that a number of states either do not become parties to the treaties, or actually, even if they do, they don't have the human capacity to incorporate and effectively implement conventions under their national law. Originally, I'm from Honduras, and I can speak of my country and many other countries in the like, that an instrument that incorporates a convention is very simple. Article 1, the International Convention, let's say on civil liability for bunker oil pollution damage, which literally states, and is copy and paste, forms part of the laws of Honduras. Article 2, this law enters into force tomorrow. And we are a party, and we believe we have implemented the convention, but we fail to realize that we have acquired not only rights, but a lot of obligations that need to be discharged. And IMO then established the Institute 34 years ago. We're about to start our 35th academic year, precisely to train originally lawyers, and originally from developing countries, in the whole spectrum of international maritime law, and also on the specific skills that are required on maritime legislation drafting. So since then, we have evolved. And two things. Around 2016, there was a study by IMO when they realized that there are a number of administrations that need to implement the conventions, but do not have lawyers. And as such, they couldn't access IMLI training. So we developed a new program that is called the Master of Humanities in Maritime Legislation, whereas, and I like the question that was posed to you, we do not train lawyers only, but maritime professionals. You know, and I really like that question because it opens a new world of possibilities. You know, I mean, not only lawyers are tasked with implementing the law, you know, and technical officers need to understand the law to understand the rights of the country and the limits on those rights. Because an overprotective approach without understanding the rights may lead to abuse unconsciously and may lead to problems for the state. So we have been training by now over 1,700 maritime professionals from over 155 states. And our programs have been very successful. And I would like to say that we can see a growth from the moment they arrive at IMLI to the moment they graduate, and thereafter also their progress in their academic and their professional careers. Many of our of our graduates take very senior positions in their respective countries, and others go on to represent their countries at delegations at IMO. At the moment, even within the IMO staff, we have the Director of Administration, which is an IMLI graduate, the recently appointed Director of Legal Affairs and External Relations Division, which is an IMLI graduate, would have foreign ministers, heads of state, you know, I mean, directors of maritime administrations. So we are seeing an increasing approach of governments making use of IMLI graduates in ensuring that when the state considers becoming a party to a convention, because not every convention is good for every country. So when a state considers, they would consult IMLI graduates, understand their rights, obligations, and usually they would actually consult them in the process of enacting legislation. So we believe that IMLI is playing a fundamental role in assisting or achieving IMO's objectives in securing a safe, secure, and efficient shipping on clean oceans.
Thank you, Dr. Norman, for the brief answer. I think we have discussed many different aspects regarding preparing the seafarer, preparing the professional mariner, how are we expect the challenges. We highlighted the importance of incorporating the soft skills within the study plan, within the curriculum, to make sure that we have a proper graduate capable to work on board the ships and even on shore. I think now it's the most hard question for the whole session, and it's addressed to Dr. Khansa. Dr. Khansa, from what I have just mentioned now, do we need to develop a maritime education program about how to maintain a good mental health on board ships, considering that the importance of the mental health among seafarers is very effective for the teamwork and to make sure of the well-being of the seafarer or the maritime professional? How can we incorporate this as the maritime universities or maritime training institutes?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Captain Youssef, for this question. But before, I would like to thank the organizers of this amazing conference and the TGA for inviting me. Well, to start with, I think the mental health in the maritime sector is a crucial matter, and I think the COVID and the pandemic has shown us how the mental health of seafarers is important, but not only the seafarers. Let's say that the perception that everybody has about the mental health has changed after the COVID. So I think the seafarers' mental health is very important for an effective and a sustainable maritime sector. We are here to discuss topics related to sustainability, and sometimes we tend to forget seafarers, which, you know, sometimes I feel sad when we attend big events and we tend to forget a little bit the key persons in the whole supply chain, in the whole, you know, the sector. It's seafarers. Without seafarers, we can't have anything. Of course, now we are talking about innovation, about technology, about autonomous ships, about the risks that seafarers might have, if we will have seafarers in the future or not. But I think it will not be a revolutionary thing. I think about autonomous ships, we might have them in some regions, but not in the entire world, and we know that all regions and all countries, they don't have the same, let's say, ability and the same resources to adopt all of those technologies that we are talking about. So we have to think about seafarers, that they are the persons that they are getting all of this. The technology is already here. There is a very high, sophisticated, let's say, ships in the markets already. And myself, I just had the experience to sail on a very brand new ship, Danish flag, that was built in China. And I mean, the seafarers, they are experiencing the new technologies. But the most important thing is that most of them, they are not trained for those technologies, meaning that they are put on ships, moving from one contract to another, moving from a conventional, let's say, ship to a very sophisticated ship, and they have to cope with all of this. So linking that with the mental health, it's bringing the pressure and the stress and the anxiety to seafarers because they are not well trained. When they are not well trained, well, they have to cope with that on their, maybe it's affecting their health. And just to follow up with the example that I gave, the field research that I did, it was about the impact of new technologies on the well-being and the health of seafarers. And I can tell you, without any exception, all of them, they said to me, they are stressed. The technology is not reducing their tasks, it's the opposite. It's bringing more tasks for them. And on the top of that, they have to cope with this in 1 week or 2 weeks. They have to be really well operated. So I think the education system has also to adapt itself to that. We are thinking about upscaling or reskilling seafarers, but I think we have to think about how to include in all of this education system the mental health and the well-being of seafarers. Coming from the World Maritime University, lately and after the COVID precisely, some of the faculty members, and among of them myself, we started to look on this topic, right? And recently we developed some short programs, let's say, on different topics related to the new areas that the maritime sector knows, including autonomous ships, the environmental aspects, etc. With some of my colleagues, we developed a program about the mental health and the well-being seafarers. But guess what? All the other programs, they were very popular. We got a lot of candidates, except for this program, which we will not open this summer because we didn't get enough candidates to have it. So I think this kind of event is also an opportunity to highlight the importance of mental health of seafarers and to raise awareness because with the education, we will first help the seafarers to give them the tools to get resilience when they are working on board ships, but also to help them or to popularize the topic so they can be comfortable to talk about the issues. I'm sorry if I'm long, but I will be very short now. I think with education, we might help the seafarers that they are scared or afraid to lose their contracts by talking about their mental health, and or the ones that in their culture, it's not something well perceived. Talking about mental health in a lot of cultures, it's a sign of weakness. While in the physical health, if they have a disease, they can easily talk about it. So I think education can also help with that to open up about the topic.
Yeah, I think this is based on the lack of awareness about the topic. And we have seen this before. Previously, we tend to educate just for the technical, for the hands-on, and the companies in the in-house training used to invest millions of dollars for the technical, hands-on. Later, they realized that this is not enough. They have to incorporate the soft skills, so they added this. And I think soon the mental health and the seafarers' well-being will be coming on board. All the questions that we have discussed will take us back to Dr. Ghaffari, Dr. Shadi. After this brainstorming that hopefully will be fruitful, do you see a need of a Maritime Competency Council to fill the gap between maritime education and training and the different aspects of the industry along with the Maritime Administration's presence?
Yes, of course. We need to fill the gap between the industry and Maritime Institute. I'm answering this question by giving some suggestion. One of the strong suggestions that to gather all the maritime stakeholders under one roof to talk face-to-face and dealing with the recent issue, discuss about the future plan, Also, we are happy to criticize and add some chapter and modification on the curriculum, if that's possible. It's good, so this one, a very strong one. I really recommend it for all maritime stakeholders, whether it's the industry or for the Maritime Institute. Another recommendation is we have to create the culture of the guest speaker from the industry. For example, let's have in our college or any maritime institute expert people to give a lecture or give case study about the real life to the staff member or for a student to participate and give some solution about this one and to involve in the industry. And the same thing for the staff member, we are happy to visit the company and give a lecture and give a workshop about what's are facing right now. This would give more extent and more knowledge to each parties. Also, one from the Maritime Institute side is to provide the online courses or distance learning, especially for the maritime industry. Their time is very tight, especially for those who go abroad for weeks or months. We don't want them to eliminate their skills, but there is a window to develop themselves, to obtain new skills. So this is a very good opportunity. Yeah. Our aim is not to provide just quality education for our students. It's also to help the society and involve to the industry, to show to the industry what we can do about them. Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, this is a very open question, and also I would be more than happy if I can share it with the audience later on. So this suggestion not to be closed here, but to open in the future.
Yeah, it's very open in the question. Yeah, creating
Yes.
the kind of a maritime competencies and a council is very open, and it might incorporate many stakeholders. So yeah, just a generic question, but definitely it has much details has to be discussed in brief. Captain Turk, do you think that the shipping career is attractive for the new generation in the Arab countries? And let's include also male and female, because maybe in the academy that I'm representing in Sharjah, Maritime Academy, 39% of the population that we're having there are Emirati females. So do you think it's an attractive career in general in the Arab region?
Okay, before I start, just want to comment on Dr. William comment, keeping the best for last. I hope it's that, and not actually categorizing training and certification to be the last in every event because of the importance of human resource, as you mentioned. Now, is it attractive or not in Arab world? If I say only the answer for that specific question, I'll be not really saying the right thing, because it's a challenge for globally. Not only in the Arab world. There is a big shortage everywhere, and in order to make it better, I think it has to be brought up at a higher level, maybe IMO level, or we have to think maybe outside the box on how to make it attractive for everyone. Because as you understand, like our colleague who was presenting, he said 56% of those people of our caliber, the ones that we want to introduce to maritime, they pay from their own pocket.
Yeah.
Now, if 56% have to pay in order to be inducted to the maritime industry, that's first has to be resolved. Industry has to be contributing more into making this environment attractive for individuals. I'm not talking now about male, female. It's a global challenge for male and female. It's not specifically for this region. And in order to make it better, my opinion maybe starts with how to make the economic right, you know, how to make them get compensated right, how to get the money right, their salaries, their compensation. And the second is their schedule, you know, and this link to the mental health, you know, because if they stay longer, they need to be looked after more than if they stayed like short periods of sure. And depending on the environment itself of work, environment of work dictate maybe different area of operation. Some areas are really harsh to operate. Some are moderate. Some are, it's okay, you know, like can be considered acceptable. But generally, maritime is risky and harsh all over. The other thing, maybe talking to people more and introducing maritime in the Arab world mainly, because we have been dependent on expat for a long, long time. And this sector was left to non-Saudis mainly and non-Arabs. But now we need to think differently, because the Vision 2030 have a clear vision of maritime aspect and how it should be promoted and developed. So maybe 40% of the vision is related to maritime. So if you think about that and the numbers, thousands of people that will be needed and thousands of ready people, so investment in training, certification, making sure that we sponsor more trainees, because if you leave it for individual efforts like private sector, it's very hard to achieve, or they can achieve it as acceptable quality, let's call it. But if you want it really at high quality, you need to make sure that you look after these institutions and maybe you fund them more, establish some kind of funds, special funds for maritime education that can compensate for these needs in the market. So that's in general, but yes, I agree with you, it's very challenging, and all of us has to contribute to make it better.
Thank you, Captain Turk, and I think that recalls the point that was highlighted by Dr. Shadi previously. I'm trying just to connect the dots. So I think making a proper branding for the career might be much more attractive to better caliber. So I think as long as we're calling it seafarers, it's not attractive. But maritime professional, it will be attractive. And incorporating proper education, proper hands-on, soft skills, and deriving a kind of a proper career path for the person, because nobody will live on board the vessel forever. Eventually, he has to move forwards on shore for different opportunities. So I think that would be helpful from my point of view. Mr. William, please, apart from the technical training, how do you see the importance of developing future seafarers' soft skills?
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me just reference back to what Dr. Kansa did say, and then what the MD said also. I want to link both. Now, I won't discuss the technical aspects of the skills, you know, the hard, what I call the hardcore. I'll rather talk about the soft skills. Dr. Kansa did raise an important issue about mental health in shipping. It's not just in maritime, in every aspect of life. And this is one subject people are either too ashamed to talk about or too afraid to talk about, otherwise they might lose their employment. This is a very serious subject matter. Yeah. Now, I want to connect that to the soft skills. Emotional intelligence, which is one of the critical soft skills in maritime. Your ability to read the mannerism, the attitudinal change, the emotions of your colleagues gives you a notch above the regular technical competence. You must be someone who can read. Dr. Kamsa comes into the office every day smiling, but on this particular occasion, she is not happy. Your ability to pick that vibe and talk to her, what could be the problem? That emotional intelligence is an additional qualification for you to be a leader. You must be a people's person. There are natural leaders in organization, team leaders, people who can take risk, people who can speak on behalf of others. You calm down nerves, particularly in shipping. It's a very treacherous business. When you get into rough seas, those who panic and those who say, calm down, everything will be okay. You know, it's an asset. So when we talk about soft skills, it's something that we need to develop more alongside mental health. Perhaps it's a different subject matter for Professor who is here from IMLI, Dr. Kamsa, the MD, doctor himself. Find a way of incorporating these unseen subject areas, but are critical in good, just not in maritime, in all aspects of life. So those soft skills are very important. Someone who is person's person, team leader, he has emotional intelligence and ability to continue to learn and relearn, because you never stop learning. You know, so these are some of the nuances, you know, aspects that adds to your technical competence and makes you a leader, leader of men and women. Yeah.
Thank you, William. I totally agree with you, but I have just very single comment. Yes, mental health is important anywhere in any career, but I think in onboard operations, it's a bit different because you are living in different circumstances, you are living in a remote area, exactly as Dr. Khansa mentioned previously. So you are moving between one ship to another, so eventually you're moving between different nationalities, different crew members. Sometimes you work in a gale force like 9, 10, 11. So I think it needs to be a bit much more customized because our maritime demands is usually different than the regular demands. That's why things are much more complicated. Sometimes you have to take a decision at the right time in a very abnormal circumstances. Yeah. So that's just a point of view. Dr. Norman, following up our technology-oriented life nowadays, do you see the future of an automated process for maritime law, which might be helpful for the maritime professionals, you know, in the era of the artificial intelligence and ChatGPT? So are we expecting something like that in the near future?
Thank you for the question. Before addressing this, and at risk that it slips my mind, I wanted to just bring about what William has just said. And I truly believe it has been a maxim by which I have lived all my life, is that you manage projects, but you lead people. And I believe that leadership is something very, very important. I will mention it perhaps later on. But for now, I wanted to point out that it's something that I have taken head on. And IMLI, probably together with the University of Malta, is launching, hopefully next year, a new program on leadership for a sustainable maritime industry. So for sustainable maritime law. So I really understand you. I think there's a very strong need for this, and we are pioneering on that subject. Now, going back to your question, the short answer is yes. Certainly. You know, I mean, at risk of disclosing my age, when I was young, we had no mobile phones. You know, then we started with this brick type of phones until they started getting smaller. Now we have phones that we could use as an office, basically, and work from them. We have smartphones, now smart watches, smart homes, even smart cities. So we certainly are living in an environment that is ever constantly changing towards digitalization. And I believe that we may be witnessing the rebirth of the maritime industry. We have seen already things like the drones in aircraft, self-driving vehicles, and tests have been carried out successfully in ships already. And when we speak of the shipping industry, we are not speaking just of ships, but we're also speaking of ships, ports, processes, you know, and accessory services, all that logistic chain. And automation has certainly played an important role in this respect. Mention has been made already of robotics, artificial intelligence. We have machine learning, blockchain, for example, which has changed this. So I certainly believe that all these aspects would bring about a change in the maritime industry. The idea is that with automation, you would remove, for example, the element of human error. You would expedite processes. You would prevent ships from running aground in the shore. We were discussing the incident in Mauritius, for example. I mean, we would be able to prevent that. And with automation, there has been a broader change for a need to regulate it. And we go back to my first question, IMO spearheading the responsibility of regulating the maritime industry. And as William was mentioning, IMO has been dealing in depth in the development of regulation for maritime autonomous sustain for mass. And the question here is, what level of automation are we talking about in ships? Are we talking of remotely operating ships? Are we talking of fully automated ships? I mean, our speaker of this morning mentioned that for decades or generations we may not see the elimination of the seafarer on board the ship. Certainly, with automation, a number of the functions have been delegated, have been reduced and dedicated to automated systems, and the number of seafarers has reduced on board vessels. But the machine would lack that element of intuition that is innate to humans. Of course, so I can never speak of what will happen in the future. I mentioned this of the mobile phones because I remember first movies of James Bond. You used to see him taking photos with this small thing, and we see that as science fiction. Now everybody has a camera in their pocket. So what we see now within the realm of science fiction can certainly be the normal mode in the future. So I truly believe that there is a future for automated services. As we were mentioning, blockchain, for example, is already serving the supply chain, logistics. We can follow cargo in its process. Before we were speaking, how can we make a bill of lading that would become electronic, that is easily tradable? Now the exchange of information can be at the click of a finger. And going back to our discussion, I think educational institutions can play a fundamental role in this, because we can train, and mention was made now, the reskilling of seafarers. So we can focus on reskilling and now reframing the mind of young professionals, and that's something that we can discuss later. But I certainly believe that there is a future for automated service in maritime law. But if I may just emphasize one point, is that brings us to a very important point. If it happens, how would the existing legal framework cope with that? And as William was saying, IMO has been seeing what conventions may need amendment, what separate regulations may need to be done, liability now of the master. Who will be liable if there's no master on board? Would it be the person operating if it's remotely operated? If it's fully automated, who will take those responsibilities? So we're a long way away from the legal point, but we're certainly heading in that direction.
But do you think that we can reach some point that it might be a tool for settling disputes? To settle disputes can be used for that, can be extended further that far, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there will be issues that will arise because, as I mentioned before, the legal framework has been considered with a human element in mind. Yeah. But then, as I was mentioning, if you speak of the limitation of liability convention, it tells you that the ship owner or operator can limit liability. Or, for example, the master, or, well, nowadays it says anyone for whose act, neglect, or default the ship owner or salvor is responsible, which involves the master, etc. But if you have a fully automated vessel, there's no operator, there's no crew on board. Are we going to extend this, for example, to the designer of the software, you know, to the persons who installed it? I mean, we're going on a completely different realm of legal issues here. And it's something that we could say is terrifying at one point, but it's truly exciting on another. So it is something that I believe that will occupy us for decades to come.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Khansa, considering working under stress and challenging conditions at sea, how does well-being change between the pre-joining online assessment and reality?
Thank you, Captain Youssef, for the question. Well, of course, the pre-joining assessment, usually they are based on questionnaires and tests that seafarers take, or someone do those tests for them. But the reality on board ships is different. Because on questionnaire, when you are in front of your computer, the assessment is really, it's not really when you are in action on board ships. The reality on ships, usually, there is a lot of work, there is overload work, there is issues like fatigue of seafarers that we don't talk much about it. Pressure, we talk before about it, but also what's the ship owners, what the shipping companies are offering on board ships to seafarers, right? So seafarers, sometimes they pass months. This is their life, or this is their personal and professional place, right? So not all ship owners, they offer the services to make those seafarers comfortable to work, which means that when you are going on board ships is a completely different area on what you submitted during your questionnaires or tests. So going back, I will link it to the education as well, right? We have to keep monitoring the physical and the mental health of seafarers on board ships when they are on actions, and we have also to offer them services. We are talking even about the basic human rights, I would say, internet, access to internet, right? For us, it's something that it's normal. All of us, we have internet. But I would say that not all seafarers, they have the same access than us. And even when they have, either they have to pay for it, or for a limited time, or even with this, it's not with good quality. So could you imagine when you are so far from your family, when there is issues in your family or your home country, and you can't reach your family to even to check if everything is all right. So I think when we are on action, it's completely something different. We have to monitor it, of course, but we don't have to add another pressure on seafarers, asking them, oh, okay, well, what you submitted is something, and when you are on board ships is something else, so now we have to control you, to control your performance based on your mental health, physical health, etc., etc. We have, I think, the maritime community, as now we are open up to other issues like mental health and the well-being of seafarers on board ships. I think we have to create a mechanism to help out seafarers. It's time to look on seafarers not as any ordinary workers, because they are simply not. Their conditions of life on board ships is different than us when we are on in front of our desks. And so I think we have to look on things on this side to help them to report their situations, their conditions, without judging them, and and to make sure that they are safe. Most of the ratings, they are coming from countries that they need this job. If they will not do this job, they don't have other choices. And a lot of seafarers, they are scared to lose those contracts. Yeah. So we have to to develop a mechanism for a safe working conditions for seafarers, I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Khansa. I think we are almost running out of time, so I'll try to wrap it up in 2 questions to get to a conclusion. So let me start by Dr. Shadi. Dr. Shadi, please, how do you see the career development path in the maritime industry within the current and future technological changes?
Thank you for the question. I would put the career development in the maritime industry within 2 or 3 group dimensions. The first dimension is the sea-based, with people who go back and forth on the sea, which is including the bridge or the engine side. Those people who are familiar dealing with the technical part, navigation aid, engine equipment, all this stuff. The other dimension is the land base, which including government body, authorities like Seaport Authority, TGA, shipping company, any other terminal operation companies, and any other organization that related to the seaport sector. And those people mainly on management background or economic, finance, marketing, draw strategy, planning, all this stuff. Most of these 2 groups facing, of course, the technology can be benefit from the recent technology like big data analytics, robotics technology, automated ship, renewable energy, artificial intelligence. This is coming, it will take place in the near future, and you will eliminate the old-fashioned or old method that we use nowadays. The other dimension which is very important to us, especially the academic development career. It's a narrow career development, but it's very important because this is the starting point for all what I said before. Also, in the academia, we use technology. We're using the traditional method like theories, like lecture, but we move on the simulation. Simulation nowadays is very advanced. We use a state-of-the-art technology like VR, Google Mask. It's very easy for a student to handle, to see each part in the vessel or each part in the handling equipment in the port. So this is basically what the 3 dimensions I would like to express, and each part with each technology.
Totally logical, and yeah, I agree with you 100%. Captain Torque, maybe this is the hard question, and this might be the conclusion of the whole session. How do you ensure that your trainees are able to compete with the graduates from some of the best and well-known maritime colleges and universities in the world?
Before I start in this, hearing from the professor and the doctors, all of what they said is actually lead to making this environment unattractive. So if there is no proper training, if there is no proper look after for these seafarers, there is no proper legislation, I would assume, I would love to have it even IMO level, that will mandate certain minimums of life at sea requirement. We will always be saying this, we will always be expressing it. There is no legislation to save or to protect the captain if something goes wrong. And now we will not wait for autonomous ships. We are talking about equipment that are autonomous now. They are being installed. And if something goes wrong, if an accident happens, easy way out is human error. The easy close files option. It's just to try to see if there is something can be linked to human error. And you see it from all these reports in the industry about accidents, mostly leading to human error. So if I see this as a young individual want to be part of the maritime, and I see that they pin everything against the captain or chief engineer or a human element, then what will make me go into this kind of harsh environment, you know, that I will be pointed, blamed at every time. That's one. Now, in how to make sure that my students are trained up to the international level. You know, sometimes knowledge has to be shared. And to make sure, they say that either you compete with the best or you collaborate with the best. So we choose to collaborate with the best. So we have internal accreditation here by our Saudi flag. We have accreditation by Mawani. We have accreditation by ISO certification, international accreditation. And we thank TGA also that support us to get even international accreditation. Now we are the only academy that is approved by UK flag, MCA, outside of UK, and fully approved, I mean. They approved certain training, but not to be fully approved as an academy to deliver everything. So we were the only entity that is approved by UK. Why UK? Because we thought that they started way before us, and we shouldn't start from zero. You know, it will be waste of time to try to build something that already been built. Waste of resources, waste of effort, waste of capital. So in order to cut the corner, we need to go and see what they have done, and we start from there. And we are trying to even improve what they have done. So not only use it as is, we try to make it better for our region, for our caliber here in the Arab region. And this is the only way to make sure that we are doing the right thing, by having several entities monitoring what we are doing. You don't find a lot of training places that have multiple accreditation. We do this to make sure that we cannot deviate from being or doing the right thing. So that's what we are doing now.
What I've seen that everybody is doing his best. We are brainstorming things. We are trying to discuss things in this conference and many other conferences. But I have just a generic question that just crossed my mind, to be honest with you, William. So since that you are the former Deputy Director, Subdivision for the Maritime Development Technical Cooperation in the IMO, do you think that we need urgently to amend or update the STCW? Because it has been issued in 2010. Can you imagine 13 years ago without any update? If I left my computer for 24 hours without a live update, it will stuck. So what do you think?
Well, are you trying to set me up? Because there's a gentleman whom I'm looking at right there sitting and he's watching what I'm going to say. Now, well, STCW, when it was established by IMO decided to give it back to member states for implementation.
Yes.
Now, there are issues with implementation of by the way, I wasn't expecting that question. But
yeah, I didn't think about it before, sorry.
Now, the last one I can remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Miller, was 2010 amendments. But the challenge we have, and we had this regional workshop here in Jeddah, exactly 1 year now, September last year. Part of the challenge is the independent evaluation.
Yes.
Which member states, with due respect, appear not to know what to do, even how to write up the report. So that gentleman sitting down there, in collaboration with myself, we developed a brand new program on the implementation, how to write the independent evaluation. to meet the conditions of the STCW. Is it 7 and 8, as it were? Now, there are challenges with implementation of STCW, standardization of the implementation.
Yeah.
There is a very big problem. And comprehensively, it has to come from member states. It has to be member states driven.
The member state has to.
And this is what we've already, before I left IMO, we've already started the process, and it is ongoing. Did I respond to your question?
Thank you, William. It was very good political answer.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, distinguished panelists, dedicated for the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
اللي كان يعتقد انه والله ارقام كبيره وغير قابله للتحقيق كسرناها وكسرنا اجزاء منها في 2020 وسوف نكسر كثير من هذه الارقام في 2025 مما يعني انه سوف نحقق ارقام اكبر في 2030.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second panel discussion, Women in Maritime. Our panelists are Captain Dhiraj Sharma, Kati Leah, Hayat Al-Yabis, Dr. Lina Al-Uyuni. Our moderator is Dr. Samar Khan.
It's on.
Hello.
Just waiting for
Is it on?
كذا جنبي ما تظهر على قد ما أقدر.
Can I borrow that glass?
Okay.
Can I borrow that glass?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. They've not changed out though.
شكرا.
Mic working.
So are we ready to start? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to our great speakers. I'm so glad to be here with all of you today. I am Samar Khan, Head of Strategic Partnership from Royal Commission for Mecca City and Holy Site. We are going to enjoy together the next 60 minutes talking about or discussing a great topic about women in maritime industry. We're going to talk about breaking obstacles, empowering opportunities, and we are going to listen to an inspiring success stories that actually will definitely encourage all the ladies sitting with us, and for sure all men will encourage their wives, encourage their daughters, and also encourage their sister to join this industry. So before starting, let me share with you an inspiring quote from an advocate lady for diversity in the maritime industry. She said, "We need to encourage people to look for the right person for the job, rather than the right man for the job." I think you would agree with me. So, during this session, we will cover 3 different themes. First theme, overcoming gender stereotype and addressing the challenges that women face in the maritime industry. Theme number 2, highlighting initiatives, programs, and policies that promote equal opportunities, career advancement, and leadership roles for women in the maritime industry. And the final theme will be sharing individual experience and success stories of women who have excelled in different roles within the maritime industry, serving as an inspiration and encouragement for others. So let me now please introduce our great speakers. Starting with the only man on the stage, the skipper, Captain Dhiraj. Captain Dhiraj Sharma serves as ABS Regional Director of Business Development, responsible for the Middle East and Africa region. Captain Dhiraj has spent close to 3 decades in the shipping industry in several roles spanning shipping companies to classification services. Previous roles include serving as General Manager for the United Arab Chemical Carrier for over a decade based out of UAE. Captain Dhiraj is qualified master mariner from the UK Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, holds an MBA on oil and gas management, and is a member of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers London. Having worked for ship owners, managers, and oil majors in different capacities, he brings a wealth of commercial shipping experience and an owner's perspective with him. We are so glad to have you here with us, Captain Dahraj.
Thank you.
So our second speaker, Katie Leo. Katie is an HR and crewing professional with more than 20 years experience in developing people, strategies, and leading global crewing operations across different sectors in the maritime industry. Originally, she's from Scotland, but Katie has spent most of her career in the Middle East working with the offshore sectors. Although I asked you before the session, is this the first time for you in Jeddah? You said yes, but welcome here in Jeddah, and I hope it's not going to be the last time for you.
Me too. Yeah.
She has recently taken up a group role as a director culture engagement, where her focus is on designing and implementing initiatives that drive positive crew culture and improve well-being and engagement. And then our third speaker, Hayat Al-Yabis. Hayat Al-Yabis currently appointed as alternate permanent representative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the International Maritime Organization. She is a highly experienced diplomat, and she is dedicated to fostering maritime cooperation between Saudi Arabia and other IMO member states through collaboration and understanding. Hayat previously worked in the Cooperation Council for the Arab State of the Gulf, enhancing the strategic dialogue and partnership between the GCC and other countries and organizations. She has extensive experience working in the Ministry of Economic and Planning and the International Economic Affairs, expanding mutual relationship for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And our last speaker, Dr. Lina Al-Ayuni. Dr. Lina Al-Ayuni is a manager in marine planning and monitoring at Red Sea Global, one of the PIF companies. She graduated with a PhD in observational physical oceanography from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST. She is a certified pilot in underwater vehicles. She also has operational experience with high-frequency radars for monitoring surface currents. Recently, she was distinguished by Office of the Vision 2030 in the annual report of 2022 in a great research led by KAUST and tourism project led by Red Sea Global. Dr. Lina is the first female certified pilot and a PhD holder in this field. Welcome on board, all of you. So are you ready to start our great discussions? I think even our audience cannot wait to listen to this great discussion. So starting with Captain Dahraj. So with ABS being the first class society to hire a female Saudi surveyor in Saudi Arabia and the first female Emirati surveyor in the UAE, how did ABS decisions to hire female surveyors in the region contribute to breaking barriers and promoting gender equality in the maritime industry? The mic is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Samar. Good morning. Glad to be here. Fantastic gathering, and it is an honor to be here. To answer your question, ABS is the first-class society in the region to hire female surveyors. We have hired 2 female surveyors. The first female surveyor, her name is Walla Abdul Haim, a Saudi national. She's with our Saudi Arabia team. The second surveyor is Jawar Al-Shamsi. She's a UAE national, and she's part of our UAE team. We are really glad and we are proud to have them in the team. They are a great asset so far. They have been working with us. It is going very well. To answer your second question, that does this break barriers? I believe it certainly does. The reason being is that we all know that our maritime industry is male-dominated, right? So this is a small step, but we believe it's a very important one. The reason being is it is more of a catalyst. You know, when people see something like this happening, it inspires others as well. So it has broken barriers for sure. And it is our way of, how should I put it, contributing or reducing the gender parity gap. We have a long way to go, but the bottom line is that it is a start, and we want to make the start. Then the other thing is that what we feel more important about this whole decision of hiring female surveyors was that, something like this inspires other talent. When women are in this maritime organization, they work and they showcase their capabilities well. It inspires the other women who are keen to join the industry. So they act like role models or examples. So this is a very good thing. This is again like setting a chain in motion for things to come, right? And if you want to add the Saudi Maritime Vision to that, 2030, there's a big focus on inclusivity, opportunities for all, and also reducing the gender gap. So this ties in there as well. So it is our step from our side. However, we feel our colleagues in the industry, different classification societies, other industry, pioneers, they will take upon themselves also to do the same thing. And by, it is basically has to be collaborative. We have taken a first step, but I think this is something that's going to come. And, I'm going to see, we're going to see a lot of female colleagues in the industry. I think it is coming. Then I'd like to share something very nice with you. I was reading a World Economic Forum report some time back, and they mentioned about the time or the period that is required to objectively reduce or bridge the parity gap is over 100 years. So actually it was 131 years, if I'm not mistaken. So if you take 131 years to bridge the gender gap, that's about 3 to 4 generations. That's a long time, right? But then we need to start somewhere, right? So this is what we have done. We have started, we have partnered with this, and we hope this is going to help others join us and synergize the way forward. Lastly, this is a very transformative journey for the kingdom, and we are really, really proud to be a part of it and support it as best as we can.
That's great. So I will jump actually to Katie, and I will ask you about something related also to recruiting and hiring. So what are the biggest challenges to increasing gender diversity in the maritime industry?
Thanks, Dr. Samar. Thanks for the question, and thanks very much to the TGA for hosting this event and inviting me to speak on this subject, one that's very close to my own heart. I think one of the key challenges we still have is the image of the industry. It's still very much a male domain, and the opportunities that are available to women are not always particularly visible. That's why it's great what you're doing, Captain Diraj, creating that visibility of opportunities. There's also the case that, the work on board can be dangerous, dirty, physically challenging, and the conditions on board can, they're not always the most comfortable. So we do have a challenge, in attracting female talent. The other issue, we've got other negative perceptions towards female seafarers themselves. Unfortunately, throughout my career, I've heard from both onboard and onshore management a reluctance, to have female seafarers on board because perhaps they're not capable to do the job. Perhaps they're not going to want to do the hard work. They won't handle the tough environment. Or perhaps they're going to cause some distraction or create trouble on board. And if they're only going to be there for a short time, what's the point in training them? So this kind of attitude or negative bias, it means that women miss out on doing meaningful work on board, which means that they also lose out on development opportunities and potential career progression. So that's something we need to work on as well. And then there's the physical condition on vessel, things like lack of facilities. There's no dedicated toilet facilities, there's no dedicated changing rooms, laundry rooms, that kind of thing. That makes it difficult for women on board. And even things like access to proper fitting PPE. This is one of the most common issues we have with our female crew. Like when they go on board a vessel, if it's only men's sizes that are there, even like a small men's coverall tends to be, to fit a height of 170 centimetres. And most of our female seafarers, particularly in the Philippines, they would be average 150 centimeters. So it's quite a difference, you know. So that really does impact on their mobility, their comfort, and their safety. So there's still a few challenges there that we need to work on, but you know, at least we're aware of them and addressing them.
That's amazing. So, Kathy, do you think this challenges that you were talking about is only for the Middle East or worldwide?
It's worldwide.
Worldwide?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Because
in my experience, yeah.
That's great, because I'm going to jump actually now to Hayat. And I want you, Hayat, to after mentioning some obstacles and challenges that facing women in maritime industry, so how would you suggest the industry should tackle these kind of obstacles here in Saudi Arabia or even like worldwide?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for your question. Well, I think that we must actively and jointly examine the barriers that we're facing and to know what's causing the challenges and try to find proactive solutions that would help us and support in engaging more women in the sector. Well, I'm proud to be the first Saudi representative female and one of the first from the MENA region as well, and I hope to be one of the best. And I know that I want to be the last one to join. So one of those barriers is that currently the exposure, raising the exposure and the awareness of the industries and what opportunities exist. We have a variety of opportunities within the sector, so we must ignite the interest at an early age. Specifically, I would say that we need to engage with the future generation from females at an early age. Women in maritime field would make up less than 2% of the global workforce, and the fact demonstrates that the sector does not have enough resources to match the high demand of the seafarers and the employees. The MENA region holds a unique position and a potential to mobilize in workforce and to start with and to engage more women as well. Last year, during the Women Day, the International Women Day in Maritime, the Saudi Transport General Authority went to female schools to educate students more about the maritime sector and the existed opportunities. These kind of activities should be pursued because it light and spark an early interest, and it allow for increased visibility. So I think once we ignited this thing, we need to make sure that we have to provide the opportunities for them. So for example, in May 2023, the Saudi Logistic Academy launched a program specialized for female to educate them and develop and qualify them to be leaders in the logistic sector. In that program, there was like a professional counseling session aiming to empower women more and to make sure that they get in that positions with the right capabilities and experience. So this is one of the ways that we can use to tackle such challenges we face.
That's great. So jumping also to Dr. Lina, Dr. Lina, my question to you will be similar to Hayat, from the technical person actually that working in the maritime industry. So now, let's say like for 6 years or 10 years you're working in this industry?
2 years.
2 years. No, but you include actually,
including
you include
my
the
PhD, it's 5 years, so 7 years.
So that's great. So what do you think need to be done to attract more women to the maritime industry and to encourage them to take a leadership role in this sector?
Assalamu alaikum, sabah al-khair, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. So what I think is good for a female to seek this kind of leadership positions, we have to provide them with a very good training and give them more visibility for to be exist around the world, not only in the Arab countries but international as well. And the training is really good to take them to another stage of taking positions that to show them that they are trusted. And since the training that is provided in a very good way, based on the discussion that it is before us, the education, it's very good for them to take that into the level of making those people very highly competitive in a way that is getting recognized internationally. This is one. Two is, I see female specifically because in the maritime industry, it is 1.2 of the female are occupying only the field. So working with the female is really good from my perspective as the opportunity that can be taken from having them in the industry and having them in their jobs. So just show a trust from the managers or from the employers who's recruiting those female is showing the other female in the field that this person is capable. And last thing that I want to say is market those and advertise their effort and recognize them to encourage the young generation or young people to join that sector and see there is an example succeed, and it can be spread as well.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Lina, for sharing the education. I always say education is the key to open any gates. بعد توفيق الله طبعا. So while we are discussing actually behind the stage, I was asking Captain Dahraj, when was the last time you visited Saudi Arabia? And he said the 1990s. So he was a junior officer. So I'm going to ask you a question about this. In your career in the marine industry so far, what change have you been seeing as compared to you when you first visited the kingdom in the 1990s as a junior officer?
Wow.
And now, mashallah, you are a regional director.
Yeah, it's been almost 30 years, but yeah, that brings memories. And to answer your question, firstly, I would try to put it in one sentence. The change has been overwhelming, really overwhelming. I remember the time Jeddah was my second port as an officer, and I will relate to what actually happened. It took us a very long time just to get on the ship. We were waiting at customs, we were waiting at immigration, and basically, it could have been much better, right? So that was a challenge. And over a period of time, I did see changes coming, and then, of course, I came ashore. And I have been to Saudi, first time, of course, that was 1990 as a junior officer, but I have come in different capacities afterwards. And there has been a change in infrastructure, there has been a change in tonnage, there has been a change in perception, there has been a change in the drive which I see in the younger generation. I will relate to that because somebody walked up to us yesterday on our booth and asked some very pointed questions. So anyway, the change is there. We see it. It is, I will answer it in two parts. The maritime sector, definitely, and also in the infrastructure. The old city is like, you know, it's almost everything is new, been built up again. And how should I put it in a better word? It is very welcoming. I will narrate an incident yesterday. We were visited by 3 cadets on our booth. So they wanted to know what we did. and they were very, very keen on doing things very fast. He said, what do you do, and how do I do what you do? So they are, the change is the drive in the younger generation. I see it's a very pronounced drive, and there is a lot of positivity. And if you start relating to the events that have been happening in the kingdom of late, they are sort of, pointing in the same direction. The whole industry here, I believe, is pulling in the same direction. There is commitment from the leadership as well. There is commitment from the maritime partners as well. And this is one of the very reasons we are here as well today. I think it is going very fast, and I wish all the best to the kingdom.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so back to Katie. As HR professional and spending more than 20 years in this field, what do you think you can do, or maritime industry can do, to attract more ladies?
Okay. Well, I think it's first important that we design employment policies and welfare networks such that we can create a safe and comfortable and supportive environment for female seafarers. I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the issues we do have, of course, is bullying and harassment on board. Along with the other things that we need to address, like making sure there's proper PPE and facilities on board, we need to have like a robust, a trusted and reliable speak-up process so that female seafarers can report any issues immediately. And the other one I wanted to mention was, putting multiple females on board at the same time. I didn't want to forget that one because it's much more difficult for our female seafarers if they go on board solo. If there's at least another female seafarer there, it makes the experience much more comfortable for them. And the other thing, as well as having those employment policies, you really need to build a strong company culture around it that embraces diversity, supports diversity. And that positive messaging really needs to come from the top of the organisation and filter all the way down. And then, of course, you need that consistent thread of messaging through everything from your hiring to your onboarding to your performance management and your leadership development. And then just going back to what Dr. Lena and Hayat were saying, when we're talking about attracting females to the industry, the earlier the better. We've got some superintendents going to at various locations globally, visiting primary schools and trying to increase awareness and interest in the maritime industry, but also to encourage more girls to take up STEM subjects, to give us that pipeline of female talent into the industry. And this is something that we're working on a lot in our company, is the career pathways. We recognize that a lot of the younger graduates, they're looking for flexible careers. They might even want to transfer across different disciplines throughout their career. So that's what we're working on in my company, is having a very detailed ship-to-shore program and showing those sort of various pathways at all stages of the seagoing career. So if you're a third mate and after 1 year on board you think, life at sea just isn't for me, then there should be 3 or 4 options that you can consider onshore, so that we don't lose all that development and training and investment that we've made already. And these are perfect candidates to come in and support the onshore operations as well. And I think where we have those sort of diverse and flexible career pathways, these certainly appeal to female seafarers because it breaks those barriers of it gives them an option where they can also balance family life and career, having that option to come ashore, spend some time working in the office, and maybe eventually going back on board the vessel. And some, male seafarers want that option too. So
that's great. So I will actually move back to Captain Dahraj. So sitting next to HR professionals and director, I think we can just take the advantage of that by asking you questions related a little bit to HR field about the initiatives and programs that actually exists to promote gender diversity and empower women in the maritime industry, with particular actually reference to ABS?
Dr. Samar, in ABS, of course, IMO has its own programs. We have Arab women in the Middle East. We have Vista. But for ABS, we have a program. We have actually two programs. It's a graduate management program. It's called Aspire, and the other one is called Bold. It is not actually gender-centric. However, we encourage, off late, we have had a lot of graduate trainees which have been they have been basically females. So we take them on board. We train them in various disciplines within the organization, like engineering, surveys, commercial side. They spend about three months in different sections of the organization to understand everything else. And then they join the workforce. So we have seen about 14% increase in female applicants. And that is a very positive sign. And we always, within ABS, follow a policy of equal opportunities for all. However, the gender gap is quite a lot. So there is a focus to have more females joining the organization to make it a more, better workforce. Having answered, I want to add something to what Katie was saying, like on-board issues. Traditionally, there is a big gap between the seafaring community itself. We have old seafarers who have their own mindset, and there is a transitional phase, and there is the new generation that is coming. I'll give you an example. Once I was on board, I was a chief officer, and we had 2 lady cadets, girl cadets. They were always given jobs of how should I put it? Within the office, not an aggressive job as such. So they complained that, we spend the time on board, we tried to learn, but we were not given anything meaningful. However, I see that changing now, and I think that's a very positive step.
Great. So this is amazing. So back to Dr. Lena. Before actually talking about the positive side of the women in maritime, I want you to tell me, how can we enable more widespread public acceptance of women in the maritime industry?
This conference is an example.
Great.
I think it's really good to show other people or public people the good or an example from a success females and a success male as well, to just transfer the knowledge that those people have done it and that the rest of the people can do who has this an interest. And I think it's always good to increase the awareness in the language that the public people can understand it. And having this, for example, in, let's say, a public platform accessible for other people to see that is very, very inspiring for the ones that who want to do it, but they're a bit afraid. It comes from people and it is for people. So since there is a number of people they have done it, I think is a proof that it can be done. Yeah, increasing awareness is really important, and I think part of that is rely on us as a female, let's say, regardless that we are Saudis or we are international, but it's good to show those cases among many other just to prove that.
That's great. So, Hayat, what are the positive examples? Now we finished from the obstacles, let's be more positive, and we're going to share with you success stories, positive discussions about the maritime industry. So what are the positive examples of opportunities of upskilling and investing women in the maritime industry?
Well, thank you for your question. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia partnered with the IMO Global Partnership Project, which I thank Dr. Joe Mythical, my friend here, who is the director of the Project and Partnership Department at the IMO Secretariat. Jointly, we had the Saudi Arabia has hosted a successful workshop last May in Jeddah as well, where it focused on Arab women in maritime biofouling management. The workshop was the first global workshop that is dedicated only for women. We had different experts from the MENA region, 18 countries, where we gave the workshop gives the chance to the participants to share their knowledge and experience in the maritime sector, and we were impressed of the experience they have in a specific and critical issue such as biofouling management. We learned a lot from that workshop. Dr. Lena was one of the team lead of the breakout groups. During that workshop, we had 3 breakout groups. We discussed several important issues such as educational needs, how to work on the gender equality and the gap we have, and how to what is the role of women in the environmental sustainability, and also what challenges that she's facing in the sector, and we need to tackle, and we need to make that this sector is safe and proper for her to be in. Also, during that workshop, we had high-level panel. We had great speakers. One of them is Her Excellency Hassal Malik, where I can see in front of me. We shared different views on what steps and actions we can take and to move forward. One of those was creating networks, and I think it's a great thing to start with, as we need, as I said in the beginning, to raise the awareness. And what a good thing, more than having a network where we engage the experts in the field and let them share the knowledge and light the spark that we need in order for us to achieve more in that sector. So the government of Saudi Arabia and the wise leadership we have is empowering women in all aspects, including the maritime sector. And one of the things, one of the things that we had in the first day of the conference was the announcement of the continued funding of the glow fouling project, which we aim to make what we had as a model for the other regions to follow. We had a successful story, and we hope to see it in other regions as well.
May I add one point
sure,
to
definitely.
what's been said by Hayat? I think just for the increasing awareness point, we all of us has social media accounts. Yeah. So if we want to see these changes, we have to use it properly in a way that, I mean, it is our language, the language that everyone can understand it. We tweet, we Snapchat, we do these posts in a very public language that can be understood by a young generation and the others who doesn't get into the scientific language. So social media is accessible and it's with everyone. And if you feel yourself that you are in the field of maritime or marine sciences or environment or any other sector, just use it, because there is another person in the world who needs this encouragement. And it's part of us responsibility or pleasure to educate them in a very soft way, that they don't feel that they are forced to know the information.
That's great. So I think if you would like to add anything related to education, Katie, are you okay? Because I know that it's just like usually HR people, they actually read many CVs and they actually facing many things related to education. So would you like to add anything about this?
Only that I fully agree with Dr. Lena about the social media aspect. You know, that is the channel that we have to target now compared to traditional channels. You know, all the younger generations are looking at YouTube videos, and a lot of companies are optimizing those channels. YouTube, Instagram, you know, all of those kind of channels. So I fully agree, that's where we need to start targeting our recruitment campaigns. Yeah.
That's great. So also another question for you as HR director.
Yes.
I know that you are facing a lot of like different stories from women, especially in this industry.
Yeah.
I want you to share with us if you have like a story from the people that actually, or the ladies that actually coming to you, or your personal experience in the maritime industry, please.
Okay. I think when I mentioned before about putting multiple women on board the same vessel, this is from a mistake I made a few years back, you know, and I just put a young female officer, a young female cadet actually on board the vessel on her own. It was a naive thing to do. It was a long time ago, and you learn from your mistakes, but you know, it wasn't a comfortable experience for her, and I feel that it wasn't long after that that she stopped her seagoing career. She took a job onshore, and I always wonder if I had given her a different opportunity, would she still be at sea? You know, so it's that's kind of one of those experiences that I'll never forget. You know, you learn from. But my own experience as a woman in maritime, I mean, I've been in HR crewing, so women are very well represented in that department. But as you know, you kind of grow through the ranks, you come up to management level, senior management, there starts to become fewer. You tend to be the only woman at the table. But as Captain Daraj says, you know, we're seeing a lot of better progress, a lot more receptiveness to having females on board and giving them proper work to do. And I think it's to do with the visibility, you know, when not just female seafarers, but male seafarers can see successful, you know, female crew, it's like, okay, then yes, this is possible. Plus, all of that resistance was tended to come from older generations, and they're gradually on their way out. Yes, exactly. So I definitely see positive change, and it's fantastic, you know, to see all these different role models coming through. It makes such a difference, and if you see it, you can be it, you know. So
that's amazing.
Yes, sure. Can I add to the change? You know what Katie is saying, like when you fly in to Saudi Arabia, be it Dammam, be it Jeddah, it is fast, and then on the forefront I see ladies. So definitely somebody is working very hard on the gender parity. Airports, customs, hotels, you see the change. You see it yourself. Just adding to what you were saying.
Yeah, the change actually is happening everywhere. You visit now Jeddah and before Dhahran, but you must visit Riyadh.
Take up your offer on that.
I will. So I will actually give you a very interesting questions, Dr. Lena. I'm sure that most of the people here, male or female, they want to listen about your success stories as the first female pilot in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so when we talk about pilot, it is underwater vehicles that I used to collect the data for my PhD. And it was a very good opportunity for me to have the certificate in order to run those an instrument underwater, leave them, and I did collect the data, and I do the analysis for my dissertation. So actually, that was KAUST. Of course, it happened when I was at KAUST doing my PhD, and it's really a good example that this country is providing us with a good opportunity from around the world with a good recognition and bring them together. So I had a chance to have this certificate and use it, and it's valid.
That's great. So actually, we want to close this session by asking a question, and I want to receive a sentence or an answer from each one of you. Give us one wish that you really want to see in the maritime sector, starting by our skipper, our captain, Dahraj?
You hit me with that question. Hello. Yeah, I would like to see a more sustainable maritime future with gender parity gap being reduced.
That's great. Katie?
I indeed agree with Captain Dahraj. I'd like to see a sustainable maritime industry where my daughters can have a long, fulfilling career at sea, and their daughters can also, and their sons. Yeah.
So I'm sure that you're happy in this sector. This is why you want to encourage your daughter to join it.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Hayat?
I wish to increase the visibility of the sector, especially to women, and to have such a conference and other workshops that would support that thing.
Amazing. Dr. Lena?
I would say it in Arabic and English.
Sure.
Because I insisted I want to say it in Arabic and English. So the government and the country is providing a lot of opportunities for everyone, not only for female. Please don't be afraid to take it. There is nothing behind this fear except than sitting in your place. So take it and glow and fly, and then don't let anything to stop you. الدولة بتوفر لنا فرص رائعة جدا، واحدة منهم هنا، في كثير خبراء موجودين، في فرص رائعة، المجال واسع ويشمل الكثير من الناس والأشخاص. ما في المفروض يكون في أي سقف يحد أي تقدم، بس الخطوة الأولى هي شوية يبغى لها تحدي عشان فيها طاقة مختلفة، وربنا يوفق الجميع. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And my wish is to celebrate more success stories, not only in the maritime sector, but in all the sectors in the kingdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
اللي كان يعتقد انه والله ارقام كبيره وغير قابله للتحقيق كسرناها وكسرنا اجزاء منها في 2020 وسوف نكسر كثير من هذه الارقام في 2025 مما يعني انه سوف نحقق ارقام اكبر في 2030.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third panel discussion. Executive Leaders' Insights Reflecting Maritime Transformation. Our panelists are Captain Abdurrahman Thnayan, Tahir al-Dabbagh, Fahd bin Jefan, Shakib Abi Saab, Karim Kepper. Our moderator is Engineer Yusuf Al-Dosari.
شوية نجلس
خلاص نبدأ يلا. Well, Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. My name is Yusuf Dosari. I'm General Manager of Maritime Environment and Safety at Transport General Authority, TGA. I'm very glad and thrilled to moderate this panel, which is going to be the final panel of this interesting conference that we had in the past 3 days. I personally look forward to hear from the respective leaders with me in the panel, and I'll go very quickly to give the chance for them to introduce themselves, starting with Captain Abdurrahman, please.
Good morning. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to you all. My name is Abdurrahman Al-Thaniyan. I'm the Deputy for Maritime Transport in the Transport General Authority. So basically, in simple words, we are responsible for, or we are heading the Saudi flag. I don't want to keep it too long. I think this one is good enough.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm very glad to be here today with you. My name is Tahir Al-Dabbagh. I have diverse experience with different companies before coming to the exciting world of the maritime. I started with companies like Unilever, Microsoft, and Mobile, and now for the last 4.5 years, I'm enjoying the maritime industry. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fahad bin Abdelaziz Jafan. Actually, I'm honored to be part of this great panel with great people. I am the deputy of Special Economic Zone and looking after King Abdullah Port. I've been in the industry for the last 4 years. I'm a mariner by experience, and I hope that we satisfy your needs in this great panel. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello. My name is Shakib. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer. Hello. I'm the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer with Lloyd's Register. And I've been in the industry for several years. And in fact, I used to live in Riyadh, so it's wonderful to be back in Saudi Arabia. Looking forward to the discussions today.
Thank you, Shakib. Karim, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Karim Kepper. By the way, that's excellent organization, thanks to TGA, and great to be here. By graduation, I'm naval architect and marine engineer. I worked for a shipyard for 6 years in Turkey. Then I joined BV. Since then, for 27 years, I work for BV, a classification society. As of today, I'm based in Dubai. I'm in charge of Middle East, Africa, India subcontinent, Turkey, and Caspian Sea. It's very exciting to be in front of you and discussing very relevant topics today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karim. Thank you. Well, we welcome you once again to our panel, Executive Leader Insights, reflecting on maritime transformation. Today, as you can see, we have gathered some of the experienced executives, various from port operation, regulators, shipbuilders, and classification society. So would like to together explore the challenges and opportunities, strategies that are shaping the future of maritime operation. Without further ado, let's kick off this discussion and gain valuable insight from our esteemed panelists. I'll start with Captain Abdurrahman. Captain Abdurrahman, allow me to start with you, if you don't mind. Over the past 2 days we have been talking, discussing, highlighting sustainability in depth from different angles. And we all could feel that word technology mentioned over and over again. How do you see the maritime industry today, considering sustainability and future challenges?
Thank you, Yusuf. As you mentioned, we have been talking about AI, we have been talking about technologies, we have been talking about education. But the real concept of sustainability, what are we trying to sustain actually? Are we trying to sustain the seafarers, education, technology, AI? I would put it in a simple way. We're trying to sustain life. Why I'm saying this? Because it's all of the above, actually. Sustaining life. Ships are the oldest mode of transportation ever. And by sustaining the maritime industry, we are sustaining life. And we have seen this. We don't want to repeat it over and over when it comes to the pandemic and the COVID-19. Seafarers and ships, they were there all the time. Because if they stopped, we will not be here. So if we look at the education, if we look at the technology, who's going to do this? Who's going to come up with technologies, actually? We need people who are empowered. We need people who are educated to come up with this AI and technology. You know, if you look at the industry today, let's take the kingdom for as an example. We're talking about 10 plus entities regulating the maritime industry. So what's the role of TGA? We are connecting dots. Because if you're working in education, and if you're working in AI, and if you're working in regulator, who's going to connect all of these people together? So it's really important to make that we have a sustainable ecosystem, to be precise. Before we're talking about because technology will not come by itself. If we're talking about technology, who's going to adopt it and perform it on board the ships? Who's going to adopt it and also in the port industry? And at the same time, it has to be regulated. We can see the more technology we have in place, the more risks we have in place. Whether we're talking about cybersecurity, whether we're talking about breakdowns, or we're talking about blackouts. So, and so on it goes. So let's go back to the real objective. Sustainability is about sustaining life to keep the maritime industry going up and up and down.
Very well said, Captain Abdurrahman. Mr. Shakib, we're glad to have you. So, if you can share your expertise with us today, allow me to start with this question. What are the key challenges faced by the maritime sector in integrating digital technologies into its operation?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I guess if we put it on a simplistic way, there are a few challenges. Number one is the maritime industry traditionally is traditional in the way we operate. We don't fix things if they are not broken. So culturally speaking, the maritime industry is behind the rest of the world when it comes to technology. Now that said, if you look at the last 10 years, there has been a great development of technologies for the industry. However, what happens is when you look at the ocean economies as a whole, I'm talking about from port to port. You have port operations, ship management, ship operations, to ports again. There is great technologies that have automated a great deal of each vertical. But what is missing is a horizontal platform that interconnects all these verticals. And the big challenge is that today, each one of these verticals is addressed by different technologies from different companies, written in different ways, and they're all disconnected. And unless we're able to connect the entire ocean economies, we will not be able to take advantage of technologies like Abdul Rahman was mentioning, AI, for example. So we need to be able to connect all the verticals. That's the main challenge. And the last one is cost. A lot of these new technology companies create solutions that look fantastic, but nobody can afford to buy. So when you look at the industry, you have to understand your market, the capacity of the market to acquire these technologies, and then create solutions accordingly. Because the maritime industry comprises, if you look at 70% of it, is companies that have 20 ships or less. So it's not all the big ones. And those small companies don't have these great amounts of cash to put on huge amounts of technologies. So those are, in my view, the biggest challenges that I see.
Great. Thank you very much, Shakib. You just said that very well, actually, how the technology and the digital transformation can help to connect everything together. Mr. Fahad, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Allow me to start with shedding lights on innovation and competitiveness, such as automation and remote monitoring, along with operational efficiency. All are considered vital opportunities for integrating digital technologies in the maritime sector. Could you elaborate further, and what other opportunities are there for digitalization in the maritime sector, and perhaps what are the challenges could face?
Thank you very much. I think I will start with what Shakib has said just now, has stated. I think challenges, opportunities always start from challenges. And in the maritime sector, I think there was a lot of challenges that we have faced in the industry, being safety of operating at sea, safer navigation, pollution prevention, and then operation within ports. And this is the subject I will be elaborating more. I think there's a lot of options in digital technology that can improve the operation and the efficiency of the operation, either in ports or in ships. And these systems, they've offered us, when they started 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't focused to improve the efficiency of ports or ships. There was a lot of talks about the reason behind creating these new systems, being cutting costs, being safety of navigation, but we ended up really using these systems to make us better and to tell us how good we are, because the database that comes out of these digital transformation tells us real, true numbers about how good or how bad we are. And it gives us, as leaders, executive leaders, really the right way to take the right decision at the right time, because these numbers never lie, or mostly never lies, unless you play with them or fix them or do something about it. But it gives you the right numbers to be able to improve. And what happened in the kingdom in the last 5-6 years, I think efficiency was one of the key things that most of the logistic chain is trying to work on, to be more efficient and more robust. Of course, the amount of the collaboration that happens within the digital transformation, I think it's massive. Maybe my colleague here has stated that it's a challenge, and I see it as a chance for all of us to understand the others. Being in a government agency, I think sometimes we used to work in solo. Each one of us is working alone, but with these digital transformation, I think it gave us a really great chance to understand the end goal of the others. And I think there's a great opportunity in this transformation, and thank God that we have lived to this era to see how much did it affect the kingdom. And I'm sure young generation will have a lot of great job into participating in these systems.
Excellent, Mr. Fahad. It's great how you say that, how we can make a use of digitalization to achieve our goals, like efficiency, improving safety, and also monitoring our performance.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Karim, we'll move a little bit to classification society. Mr. Karim, first, I welcome you here with us today. We're delighted to hear from your valuable experience today. In your professional opinion, what should executive leaders do to ensure ESG and values are cascaded down throughout their respective organization to ensure that such practices are strictly adhered by employees, especially those who are involved in the maritime operations, such as surveyors, attending vessel, and so on. Please.
Thank you, Yusuf, for the question. My answer will be around the leadership and the people to answer this. Speaking of ESG and CSR, for me it's all about sustainable leadership. And in a way with high commitment, of course, in a way of creating sustainable businesses and healthy workplace. When it comes to sustainability for an organization, I believe it requires a paradigm shift and cultural change. So this is quite critical. But change, as you know, starts at the top. Yeah. So this needs to be initiated by the executive leaders in the first place. But in the meantime, executive leaders should invest on themselves and should develop their skills and competence on sustainability in the first place. Then we need a clear strategy and a long-term vision to make this happen. We also need, which is another particular matter, critical matter, so we need sustainability to be embedded into processes and decision-making in our day-to-day lives, in our companies, in our organizations. Besides the role of executive leaders, the other, of course, the most important critical element may be our people. So we need to train our people, we need to encourage them, we need to create a strong culture and awareness in this direction. Not only for today, as the term sustainability speaks for itself, it is a consistency, it is long-term strategy. So we should be able to create the future leaders in this path. All in all, it is a long journey. In today's world, either sustainable businesses, ESG or CSR are not the buzzwords, are not trending topics. It is a reality. It is a reality and it's a sort of must. And once it is implemented in a good way, an efficient way, so of course it will help us to stay relevant, efficient, and also competitive in the marketplace.
Very well said, Mr. Karim. Thank you for highlighting the importance of the role of the leaders to lead by examples and to ensure that embedded into the processes and operation and everything that we do. I'll move to shipbuilding. So, Mr. Tahir, thank you for being with us today. We're really looking forward to hear about your area of expertise in the maritime industry. As I believe it will be convenient to start by asking you, what is IMI sustainability strategy? And what are the goals for 2030?
Sure. Thank you very much. Allow me to spend just a quick minute to talk about IMI as an introduction to its strategy. IMI is the second largest shipyard in the world. It is being built right now in Ras Al Khair in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, and we are about 85% completion of the building, and we are starting production this year actually. IMI is a joint venture between 4 giants, Aramco, Hyundai, Bahri, and Lambrel. So when we talk about our strategy in such a large shipyard, we are keeping in mind a couple of very important things, starting with the ESG framework and the 17 goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and of course, Saudi Arabia Green Initiative and 2030 Vision. For example, if you look at the SDG goals, the goal number 12 talk about responsible production and consumption. And this is really embedded in our system. To start, we are here to create value for Saudi Arabia over the long term. We have an offtake agreement with our partners Aramco and Bahri for 10 years, and this allows us really to have this long-term vision from day one implemented with a complete sustainable mind frame in mind. And this makes life easier for our supplier. For example, we have next to our yard a supply chain cluster, and in which are used to be an input for the steel plate and other factories, and all of that will enable have an efficient production of IMI in the region. Now, when you look at the IMI goals also related to the Saudi Arabia vision, of course, the green vision and the decarbonization and the neutrality, this is again part of our work. Everything we do, we keep in mind that it has to be a minimum emission. And the good news is, because we are starting now, we have all these plans in mind. This is also complemented, and maybe you can talk later about that, about the advanced use of technologies in our production facility that will enable really a sustainable long-term value for the country.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Tahir. It's great to hear that how your strategy is connected to ESG and to United Nations SDG goals as well, and 2030 vision. Moving back to Captain Abdurrahman, Captain, you made it clear that the ultimate goal is sustainability of life. And the maritime industry is the core mean of achieving this objective. And the seeds to achieve that is education. Can you elaborate further, putting that into how to navigate through the future with, I would say, uncertainty, or let's not say uncertainty, but super dynamic environment when it comes to digital transformation, regulatory changes, and leadership styles?
Thank you, Yusuf. Actually, I like what was mentioned by Dr. Tahir about the responsible consumption and production. You know, the issue is not with the source of energy or the material being used when it comes to sustainability. It's there, whether it's oil, electricity, hydrogen, it's there. The issue is the way we use it, the way we behave towards sustainability. Let me give you a very simple example. If you see plastic at sea, it's not the fault of the plastic being at sea. It's the fault of who put it at sea, whether we're talking about corporates or individuals.
Yeah.
We have been talking over and over about education and awareness. I think awareness is critical more than education, because awareness is the seeds, actually, whether we're talking about the seafarers or the corporates or people who are working in the office. Let me give you my first cadet ship was built in 1976. And then my last ship I was sailing on was built maybe 2004. The core basics are still there, whether we're talking about technology or AI. You're an engineer, right?
Yes.
So you were invented by technology. No engineers used to work at sea, actually. It was sailing ships only and made of wood. So technology made engineers. And now we need computer programmers, AI experts, technology experts, everything we need there. Since that time, since the old days, even before the steel ships, we used to use sextants and magnetic compass and sailing. Until today, we are still having sextants, magnetic compass, and sailing on board, because we need to go back to the core basics. What if? So that's what I'm saying when it comes to the awareness and education. It has to be there. If it's not there, let's say technology today, they are talking about satellite. Why do we need satellites? We need to go back to the seed itself to understand what do you want to achieve. So that's what I want to deliver in particular. Awareness is critical, and its awareness is critical for the maritime industry.
Thank you very much, Captain Abdurrahman. And for your information, Captain Abdurrahman is my boss, so I cannot answer what he said, but there is always continuous fight between marine engineers and captains. Well, now back to you, Shakib. In your valuable opinion, what regulatory and compliance challenges might arise with the integration of digital technologies in the maritime sector, and how can they be navigated?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. I was saying, in your valuable opinion, what regulatory and compliance challenges might arise with integration of digital technologies in the maritime sector, and how can they be navigated?
Well, this is very interesting because some of the blocks that we have are because of regulations. At the same time, the regulations are there to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So like it's that, a chicken or an egg type of thing. Now, what I believe firmly is that to navigate the next generation of maritime, whether we want to become sustainable, more sustainable, whether it is to be more efficient, technology is going to play a key role. And we are going to need to work closer, not just with the big technological organizations that we know today, but with startups. And I think in Saudi Arabia, you have a great opportunity to build an ecosystem of new generation organizations that can address several of the challenges that we have in the industry today. I have seen in places like Singapore, where I live, a lot of adoption and support to these organizations. And having lived in Saudi Arabia, I had the opportunity to have met several brilliant new upcoming organizations that are not necessarily well known or seen, but have excellent ideas. So I think it is very important that the Saudi Arabian government and the corporations in Saudi Arabia start working closer with them to make sure that their technologies are focused to solve specific problems from the industry. And that creates a competitive advantage for Saudi Arabia, because then you have a new generation of technology companies that can help you solve the technology challenges that you have, and at the same time, you start building in-house and making sure that the effort and the time that is being put by these companies is going to solve real problems from the industry, which is one of the challenges you find somewhere else, everywhere else. That is, great technologies are created, but nobody adopts them because they are not aligned with the requirements of the industry. So I think technology will play a major role, and you guys have a great opportunity to address the regulatory challenges through the adoption of technology from local new generation organizations.
Thank you very much, Shakib. I absolutely like what you said in the beginning. You said about the importance of the regulation, and it is there to make us safe, and also the importance of having collaboration between the different stakeholders to make things happen with their technologies or digital transformation. Thank you very much, Shakib. Further to that, Mr. Fahad, since you are one of the leaders in the port maritime industry, executive leaders play a crucial role in driving and leading the digital transformation within the maritime industry. They set vision, provide strategic direction, allocate resources, and foster a culture of innovation. How, in your opinion, are leading the way in this transformation?
I think it is upon all organization, leaders of our organization is, first of all, to encourage innovation. I think one of the most valuable things in the kingdom is the Saudi youth. We have great young men and women working within our organization. I think encouraging these people to innovate and try to find solutions is one of the most important things for all of us, to be able to set the rule for people to come forward and bring their new ideas, their problem solving, whether being digital or not digital, but encouraging people you're working with to innovate is a very key thing. Second thing is driving alignment. I mean, with these system digital transformation, I think you need to drive it and convince people, why are we transforming? And you need to as well assure them, because a lot of people within the work environment think that these systems will come and replace people, maybe take their job. There's a job security sometimes within the digital transformation. I think digital transformation offer better jobs for people. And it made, you know, being a mariner, I think Captain Abdurrahman was just stating how much was it difficult to be a mariner. I mean, shooting star, as he said, was something I used to hate, really, because you need to go in a certain time. Digital transformation had made life easier for mariners.
Absolutely.
And it made us better. And it offered and it created new jobs. So you need to drive these things as a leader and explain it right to people you are working with. The last thing is managing the change. I think change is always there's always resistant to change. So a leader should always have that in mind and explain it very well to people working with him.
Excellent, Mr. Fahad. It's amazing how you mentioned that, actually, the importance of capacity building, making a good environment for those
Exactly.
young men and women to innovate and to be part of the change. Back to you, Mr. Karim. In the past, the maritime industry was very reactive, with many IMO conventions resulting from major incidents. However, these days regulators are trying to be proactive and insightful, like we do, with much longer term outlooks. As the challenges surrounding compliance with regulation become more and more difficult, what role should senior executive play in ensuring full compliance?
Thank you for the question, Yusuf. Yes, when it comes to regulations, yes, it may sound challenging. It is the reality, but we are working hard on this collectively. In our life cycle anyway, so for myself, I've been working in maritime industry for more than 30 years. So it used to be like this, as you said in the question. So we saw many ups and downs, many regulatory requirements, phase outs to date, but this time it is more demanding, more ambitious, and it is spread into long years. As we all know, recently back in July, IMO adopted a revised strategy at MEPC 80 session and further enhanced the target. And this is, of course, high-level direction and the ambition set by IMO. Of course, there is a lot to do to achieve this goal on the way forward. Although there is a growing progress with all contributions from our side, and certain level of, for example, emission reduction is being achieved, there is still a gap to reach the final target, of course. And to achieve this, we need more regulations, as Shakib highlighted, more technological advancements, but not only technological advancements, so we need more economically viable solutions, optimized and reliable solutions in the marketplace, and infrastructure. This will all come. But to achieve this, I would highlight collaboration. Collaboration among all the stakeholders will be very vital. Very vital. And also, as we are sitting here with Shakib and with other friends in the show anyway, class societies will be playing a significant role and supporting and providing assistance to all stakeholders in the industry. Of course, one of the reasons, there are many requirements here. Many people, they do not know how to navigate among several options and what to choose. On the other hand, there is no single solution. There are many factors. And also, let's not forget the human element. Again, I will come back and reflect on this. And we should be able to bring a new skill set into our organizations, because we are talking about new technologies and we have a long-term vision and target. So we need people, we need good people, so we need to focus on our people in this journey as well. But anyway, collectively, hopefully, so we will be achieving the first milestone, hopefully in 2030, and the next steps in 2040 and 2050 with this collaboration and people on duty.
It's amazing that how the different panelists are emphasizing on the capacity building and the role of having people ready to do so. Moving back to Mr. Tahir, would you please explain how you plan to be both a green yard and a green products? Can you provide examples?
Sure. Being a green yard is a top priority for international maritime industry. And really, it starts with the design principles itself of the yard. And secondly, the material used in the construction. And thirdly, and quite importantly, is the equipment and the operation itself as we go throughout the years in the future. To start with the design, we are an integrated shipyard that is producing and maintaining both ships and rigs. So we had a central processing unit in the middle that is used for cutting the steel and everything, and then it dispatches in like a convert built into different workshops. So the design itself was made with sustainability and environmental friendly principles in mind. When it comes to the construction itself of the huge yard, the material that were used, for example, in the concrete, rather than using regular cement, they were using a material, I think it's called benzola, that actually helped reduction of the carbon footprint in a great manner. When it comes to the equipment that we are using, we have nearly 300 different types of cranes, different type of cranes across the 12 million square meter, and 95% of our cranes are electrical. Now the question is, when we made the decision to do so, did it cost us more? The answer is yes, but only in the short term. If you have the sustainability vision, it's actually cost less over the long term, if we get all the component of the process completed together. So all these three principles, design principle of a highly automated yard, the material, and the equipment. Now examples, quick examples is, for example, in the painting and blasting, which is one of the areas that probably can be harmful if not taken care of well, we are using advanced technologies for aerobatic painting and blasting for our rigs. And we have different other examples also on this side. When it comes to a green product, we work very closely with our customers and encourage them to go toward a more sustainable solutions. And when it comes to the cost issue, we then have the discussion of the total life cycle management and the total cost of the ownership over the years, and then bringing that into the equation to help pushing our client itself to proceed more into this direction.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Tahir.
Thank you.
It's quite usual that we hear that you have sustainable product, you have sustainable material, and you have, but you go to the people and to your customer and educating your customer and your people to behave more sustainably. It's quite amazing actually to hear.
Thank you.
I actually have a few questions more, but due to time constraint, we will close the panel. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our panelists and myself, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your active participation and engagement. The insight shared by our distinguished executive have shed light on the industry advancement and the key factors that are driving its progress. Let us remember, the transformation is a continuous journey, and it is through collaborative effort that we can create a sustainable maritime sector. As we conclude this panel, I encourage each one of us to carry forward these insights and take progressive steps towards embracing change and innovation Thank you once again, and I hope you will continue to be part of shaping the future of the maritime industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for making the time to attend all of the panel discussion throughout the past 3 days, and also the exhibition and workshops. We have come to an end of this exciting conference. We would like to announce some of the recommendations as an output of this conference. First, to raise the awareness of ESG best practices for all stakeholders in the maritime sector, to pave the road for achieving sustainability in the maritime industry, with the aim of integrating ESG framework into business strategies and decision-making processes. Second, promote collaboration between various stakeholders in the maritime transport sector, including shipping and ports, regulators, and maritime classification societies, with the aim of sharing best practices, knowledge, and resources to drive the development of sustainability initiatives in the maritime industry. Third, promote circular economy. Promote circular economy concepts in the maritime industry by implementing sustainable waste recycling and green shipping best practices. Last but not least, the continuity of Sustainable Maritime Industry Conference, SMIC, as an esteemed event that encourages the continual advancement of sustainable initiatives by embracing the ever-evolving landscape of sustainable practices. With that, I thank you all for making the time of attending this conference. Thank you very much. dear guests. Just would like to announce one final announcement. There will be a small celebration. We will bring a cake